Charlotte Flair, the former NXT Women's Champion, has been spoken about quite a lot recently. Obviously, she was in the main event of NXT TakeOver in Your House on Sunday for the NXT Women's Championship, and a lot of people were talking about her after Monday Night Raw on Monday. So I think this kind of brings up the larger discussion, shall we say, about the Charlotte Flair problem, the Charlotte Flair problem in WWE. Now, let's go back to Sunday. Of course, Charlotte Flair was part of the NXT TakeOver in Your House main event. At the time, she was the NXT Women's Champion and defended against Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai. In a losing effort, Io Shirai is the new NXT Women's Champion. She hit a moonsault onto Rhea Ripley, who was in the figure 8 from Charlotte Flair at that period of time, and Io Shirai is the new champion. And then immediately, Charlotte Flair on Monday Night Raw goes into this sort of feud with Asuka. To start, originally it was announced that Asuka, the Raw Women's Champion, would be taking on Charlotte Flair. But this got interrupted by Sasha Banks and Bayley, the Women's Tag Team Champions, and then the Iconics, which turns into a brawl. And then, wouldn't you know it, it turns into a tag team match. The old classic, overused WWE tactic of have a match, have a brawl, turn it into a tag match. I mean, that is a separate video alone, to be honest. But we'll talk about that again another time. So she teams up with Asuka, two people that hate each other. Asuka, the Raw Women's Champion, and Charlotte Flair, the heel and the babyface, team up, and they beat two established tag teams, including the brand new Women's Tag Team Champions. Those two tag teams as well, the Iconics and Bayley, are in a tag team title match along with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross on Sunday. So that's another pet peeve of mine anyway. Okay, we're going to put two people together. They're going to be just an impromptu tag team. They're going to beat two established tag teams. I mean, this is, to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, this is why the Revival left WWE. Because tag team wrestling does not matter. It really doesn't matter. In the expense of the other story that WWE wants to tell with the single stars. But that wasn't it for Charlotte Flair on Monday Night Raw. We got the match that was advertised. We had Charlotte Flair going up against the Raw Women's Champion Asuka in the main event. And in terms of the match itself, I can't criticize the match at all. It was a fantastic match, a hard-hitting, awesome match. Their chemistry of Charlotte Flair and Asuka has never been in doubt. They've had fantastic matches, absolutely fantastic matches. You think back to their WrestleMania 34 match. You think back to the brief feud they had prior to WrestleMania 35 last year for the SmackDown Women's Championship. We'll touch on WrestleMania 35 in a second. But then Charlotte pins the Raw Women's Champion Asuka, the new champion, after a bit of interference from Nia Jax. Now, Asuka is defending the Raw Women's Championship Sunday against Nia Jax. And that feud, look, I wasn't a big fan of the feud. The whole discussion about whether Nia Jax is unsafe, we made a video on it. It's something to discuss later on. But I'm all for having the championship mean something and having the feud for the championship mean something. And that isn't the case now. It felt like an afterthought anyway, but now it feels even more like an afterthought because coming out of Monday Night Raw, you're thinking, okay, well, it's Asuka versus Charlotte. Not Asuka versus Nia Jax, which is the match they're meant to be promoting for the pay-per-view at the weekend. And that's what Monday Night Raw was this week. It was the Charlotte Flair show. After losing at NXT TakeOver, and I say losing in a very sarcastic sense here, because she didn't lose at NXT TakeOver. Rhea Ripley took the pin from Io Shirai. She'd made mention of that in her promo. Triple H mentioned in the media call that Charlotte Flair didn't lose. They made mention of it on commentary at least 2 or 3 times. So they did their very, very, very best to emphasize Charlotte Flair did not lose at NXT TakeOver because Charlotte Flair can't lose, right? Charlotte Flair can't lose. And that's what Raw felt like. Raw felt like that Charlotte Flair had to get the win back. She had to get her win back from Sunday. And she had to get her momentum back because she's Charlotte Flair. And they almost couldn't justify Charlotte Flair losing to an NXT superstar, which I think, if anything, does damage to that brand. Because Charlotte Flair losing to an NXT superstar, how dare? It's not even the main roster. Well, you're talking about it being a third brand. Treat it like a third brand. And this has become a wider issue with Charlotte Flair of this overexposure. With this, she has to be on everything, and she has to be involved in everything. Now, she's appeared on Raw, NXT, and SmackDown after WrestleMania this year. And she was asked about this during a recent interview, and she said, I've got the quote here, quote, "I don't know. It's like a catch-22. I think the biggest thing for me is, yes, I'm on all three brands, but if you look at my storylines that I'm a part of someone else's storyline. It's not like anything is a brackets Charlotte Flair push. Like, there's nothing that I'm just put there because I can basically do anything and everything they ask. Like, going to SmackDown was not for me. That's not a push. That is, Charlotte Flair is a name and she's coming to SmackDown. So, currently, I'm just all over the place brand-wise because I'm the hardest worker, and I will say that for the woman." Disagree with quite a few bits there, but we'll go on to another statistic here. Charlotte Flair, in the last 6 years, has been involved in 66 title matches. 66 title matches in 6 years. She's had, if you include both the NXT Women's Championship reign, she's had 12 championship reigns in the last 6 or 7 years. 12 in the last 6 or 7 years. At this rate, in terms of the career, she'd be on like 24, 25 by the time her career is over. And how many of them have been really long title reigns? Not many. Not many. And you start to question, what was really the point of this NXT Women's Championship run? Now, people are saying that it was due to, they were trying to get the ratings up for NXT. They're trying to have an established star come over to NXT. And NXT, without a doubt, has one of the strongest, if not the strongest women's division, not only in WWE, but in professional wrestling. That's without a doubt. It was the epicenter, some people would say, of the women's revolution, especially in WWE. Wider, that's up for debate. But I think the reason that Charlotte won the title at WrestleMania was to get more eyes on the product. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Now, there's multiple reasons why that didn't work. She didn't really get a fair shake of it. I would totally agree with that. You think about what happened during and after WrestleMania in terms of the pandemic and all of that stuff. But she didn't pop a rating or anything like that. She didn't get more eyeballs. Ratings went down. That's not just because of Charlotte Flair. That's because of everything. That's because of empty arenas. That's because of no fans. That's because of lots of things. But coming out of it now and having a bit of hindsight and being able to reflect on this slightly now that her NXT Women's Championship reign is over, it just feels like Charlotte Flair was added to the NXT Championship match at WrestleMania, or had the NXT Championship match at WrestleMania, should I say. It just felt like it wasn't getting over a new talent. It was, we need Charlotte Flair to be doing something at WrestleMania. We need Charlotte Flair to win a title. We can't have Charlotte Flair not doing something of importance at WrestleMania. And that's what it felt like. We had to have her win a title. And this constant, she needs to be in a title picture. She needs to be involved in championships. And it just constantly feels like, especially at the moment, but it's been a larger problem for a while now, that she is shoehorned into these, or forced into these title pictures or these feuds where it just doesn't make any logical sense for her to be in there. You look back at the WrestleMania 35 main event last year. The social media was in uproar about that anyway because she didn't need to be in it. The story wasn't there for her to be in it. The story was Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. That had been the story since Survivor Series, or since Evolution, of when they were planting the seeds for that, and then Becky got injured and the match didn't happen at Survivor Series. That's what people wanted to see. They wanted to see it at WrestleMania. They didn't want to see Charlotte Flair in there. And adding her in there at the time wasn't what WWE would say is getting heat. It wasn't adding heat. It wasn't adding stakes. It didn't feel like that. It felt like we need to have Charlotte Flair in there. We need to shoehorn her into that position because that's our girl. That's our person we want in that main event. And this is what it feels like on Monday Night Raw. This is what it felt like at WrestleMania this year. Winning the title, we need Charlotte Flair to be doing something worthwhile, regardless of if it hurts the other talent or regardless if it makes any sense for her to be in there whatsoever. And look, this is the thing. I'm not going to criticize Charlotte Flair as a performer or as an individual. I'm a big big fan of Charlotte Flair. I think she's one of the best female performers in the world. She's certainly one of the best on the WWE roster, male or female. She consistently has some of the best female matches, or just matches in general. Let's not even involve gender here. Some of the best matches on the show. And when she is on the big stage and when she has had her big moments, she delivers. There's without a shadow of a doubt. I mentioned the match at WrestleMania 34. I mentioned the match at NXT TakeOver this past weekend. Her matches in NXT TakeOver in the past. As a performer, she's great and she delivers on the big stage. And I don't have a problem with her being featured or being in title matches when the story makes sense or when it's, not all the time. But it's shoehorning, like I said. It's the fact it has to be all the time. It's overexposure, and a lot of the time it's not needed. You have a roster full of female stars, whether they're on Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. And Charlotte Flair is on all three brands. And look, women's wrestling has come so far in WWE and professional wrestling in general, but you're not having a women's match or a women's segment in every segment of the show. Unfortunately, it's still a largely male-dominated roster and a male-dominated product. It isn't a case of having 50% male segments and 50% female segments or anything like that. There's still a way to go when you think of equality in terms of professional wrestling when it comes to the females. But still, regardless of this, you've got a roster full of female stars, and Charlotte Flair has taken an upper spot on every single show. Why? How can you expect to get these new stars over, or these new female stars over, when Charlotte Flair's taking the spot every single time? It's forcing her down people's throats, to a larger extent of Roman Reigns or John Cena back in the day. Because John Cena wasn't appearing on every brand. Even Roman Reigns at this point was on one brand. This is a period of time where we have a brand extension and Charlotte Flair's appearing on multiple brands and appearing in multiple title scenes. And I don't understand why at this point, because there is no need. There really is no need. Like I said, 66 title matches in 6 years. It's astounding, and it was just kind of Monday night. It was one of those eye-rolling moments where she lost the title on Sunday. People were discussing, what's next for Charlotte Flair? Maybe this is interesting, change to a character. And then Monday, bang, right in the Raw Women's Championship scene again, even though there is a match on Sunday between two separate people for it. Why, if they needed to have, or they wanted to have Charlotte Flair in the title picture, just wait a week. Have the match play out, because now it's very obvious we're going to get Asuka versus Charlotte Flair again. I think that's fine, as long as Asuka gets her win back from WrestleMania. The story's there. It's almost the reverse of the Becky Lynch-Asuka storyline from the Royal Rumble earlier this year. Charlotte Flair is the one that Asuka couldn't really beat. So the best match here would be have Charlotte Flair actually put over Asuka. Now, whether is that going to happen, I don't know. I really don't know, because I'm not sure WWE would be willing to do that. I'm really not sure. I would suspect we're going to get Asuka versus Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam. But you got to remember, fast forward, the opposite, rewind, 12 months ago, they had Trish Stratus, arguably one of the biggest and best female performers in WWE history, put over Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam last year in Trish Stratus' hometown and home country. That's how much they think of Charlotte Flair. So will Charlotte Flair be doing a job for Asuka? It's Charlotte Flair on a big show, on one of the biggest shows of the year, in a title match once again. I think the odds don't look great for Asuka, and I think that's part of the problem here. It's the Charlotte Flair problem of this relentless push. She has to be doing something. She has to be involved all the time, regardless of if the story makes sense or if the fans want to see it or not. But what do you think? Do you think that Charlotte Flair is being shoehorned into matches where she shouldn't be involved in? Do you think that she needs to be involved in these title scenes? Do you think we're going to get a Charlotte Flair versus Asuka match in the future? Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.